my hope through doing that was that there would be a little bit more connection among us. Do you feel that that was accomplished?
Yes, thank you.
Just by taking a little bit of time and the power that we have with everybody that's in here. This is one of those awesome things that I love about the workshops is it gives us and that common mindset and anything can be done. So we're going to go, and you've gone over some of this yesterday, but I want to bring in just a little bit of a twist. And so still Adlerian, but more group participation just as we have been. And really go over this parenting from the Adlerian perspective. We don't have handouts for this, I'm sorry. Part of the reason is it was made last night, this whole thing. So it's been in my brain and on the internet, but not in one place. So just a quick review of Adler. 1900s is when he starts this parenting thing. There's been parents since as long as I know, and I assume there's been kids since then as well. And I'm pretty sure those families have been functional or dysfunctional ever since then too. So this concept of parenting is nothing new to the earth. And maybe other places if you want to think of that, I don't have any. But he started addressing the issue of quality parenting and the importance of parent education in the early 1900s. He developed a theory that was holistic at its core. That's what creates some of this ambiguity because of that holistic approach. If you want any of these things, just email me or go to adleridaho.org and use the contact us form. We'll get it to you. I don't own any of this, it's just taken from places. So he believed that when we are encouraged, we feel capable and appreciated. It makes sense to all of us, that's why we're here. This contributes to a feeling of connectedness and we're more likely to be cooperative. So what does it mean to be cooperative?
Working together.
Yeah, being together. Sometimes it's not about working, it's just be together. And the Russian, I can't remember his name. All too often we're humans doing and not humans being. You know? Having that concept of just be. When we're discouraged, we withdraw, we give up, and we feel depressed. What happens when we become discouraged? Why would we withdraw, give up, and feel depressed?
We've lost the connectedness.
Yeah, or significance. We feel insignificant.
And we lost our courage.
Yes. Whether it's true or not, whether we're significant or not, we feel as though that's the case. And that's sometimes the hardest with our clients. Who are like, you are super significant. If you could just see that. I tell the kids, and I believe it wholeheartedly, we are all loved more than we have the ability to comprehend.
So would that mean that perception is, in fact, reality?
Would it?
Or
It's yours. And David Foster Wallace, Jim Bitter did at a conference shared this awesome video, and I wanted to, but I don't have time. But it was so cool because he talks about the fact that we're all narcissistic, and that's okay, because we all live our lives through our own eyes, and there's nothing wrong with that. But we come to coexist when we start aligning our desires and our abilities with those around us. And that's what makes us social beings, that connectedness.
And that's the thing missing in the things that you're talking about.
Exactly.
When you're talking about this kind of motivational or when you're talking about the cognitive, and it tends to go back to what are my needs and how am I feeling them, and I can use this manipulative way to do it. The
Yep.
core of Adler, it seems to me,
Yeah.
is belonging and contributing and collaborating with others.
Exactly. Behavior is, I'm going to talk about this, but behavior is communication. We're all behaving, one way or another. And like I said, we don't do things because we think they're stupid. We find out afterwards. So we're behaving. We're trying to achieve something. Sometimes what we're trying to achieve is nothing. And by doing nothing, we're doing something. We're existing. So the goal of human soul, or the goal of the human soul is conquest, perfection, security, and superiority. Now, this is not ethnocentrism. It's just, this is our goal, that we can contribute. We're connected. Every child is faced with so many obstacles in life that no child grows up without striving for some form of significance. Why does lifestyle have such an important part in Adlerian? Because we have to identify where we are before we can get to where we want to go. Let me change that. We need to identify who we are before we can become who we want to become. And sometimes we don't take the time to figure out who we are. So listen to Josh Shipp.
As a kid, I mastered the art of getting kicked out of foster homes. And the fact of the matter is I trusted no one. And looking back, I guess how could I? From the time my parents left me, to the time another foster kid raped me, to the time I was bullied so bad, I tried to kill myself with a bottle of pills. So I'm sitting in the van, in the driveway of this next home, preparing to meet Rodney and Christine from Yukon, Oklahoma. He looks in my eyes and says, "Son, you can keep causing problems, you can keep trying to mess up, you can keep pushing us away, you can keep trying to get us to kick you out of here, but you've got to get it through your thick head, son. We don't see you as a problem. We see you as an opportunity." You see, every kid is one caring adult away from being a success story. March 2015, Harvard's National Scientific Council on the Developing Child released this study saying, and I quote, "Every child who winds up doing well has had at least one stable and committed relationship with a supportive adult." My friend and mentor, Reggie Joyner from Atlanta, taught me to think about it this way. In this jar are 936 marbles. Each one of these marbles represents a single week from the birth of a kid until that kid turns 18 years old. You know, a 16-year-old? You got 104 marbles remaining. Right here, we are looking at time. In fact, you're looking at all the time or all of the weeks you have left to influence this kid, or this kid before they turn 18 and begin making critical life decisions without your presence. What matters isn't how much time you have left with a particular kid that you care about. What matters is what you do with that time left. I mean, consider how many weeks Rodney had left when he bailed me out of jail. "26. I was 6 months away from graduating high school. 26 weeks to get through my thick head, my bitterness, my anger, my distrust of adults, to get me to finally accept help. You see, it's not about how much time you have left with that kid you're thinking of. What matters is what we do with that time. If every kid truly is one caring adult, one Rodney away from being a success story, then the challenge is this. The difference between a statistic and a success story is you.
All right. Did you feel it? You can feel it. So what is it? What is it?
It's my favorite subject, an analogy.
Yeah. You see the marbles. You see the time, but then what's his point with the marbles? Don't wait. I feel like that's his point. He's saying it doesn't matter if you have this much time or if you have this much time. Even if there's 2 marbles in that jar, there's time. And I think as counselors, we facilitate. Sometimes, yes, We want to make that connection. We want to be the one. But I think as a counselor, our job is that we facilitate parents to be the one. We don't own that, but we help them see that. And if we get the opportunity, we get to help their children see the significance they have for their parents. Yeah.
It seems to me like we all grow up and we have this image of we're unique, we're different, we're isolated, we're in our own universe, and it's just a natural, normal way that we grow up. No matter how connected we are, no matter what, we have this natural tendency to think that we're totally different, unique, and isolated, and no one understands. And so, to take that time as a caring adult, like he just said, no matter what time's left, to help them recognize that they are a part of the society, a part of connected, and they mean something.
Yeah.
They connect to something greater than just themselves. And even though the rest of their life they're probably going to have that same tendency to go back into the thinking as an adult, like we all do, that oh, I'm different, I'm unique, I'm isolated, I kind of want to be isolated. It's like we have this little cocoon we go into. If we can reach out and recognize that when we're reaching out, we're getting past our own tendency to be by ourselves.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we're helping other people to get past that at the same time.
We kind of want both, don't we?
Yeah.
We want to be unique, we want to be different, but we want to fit in. And that's the conundrum of it all. And I know your counselor because you say we help them feel this way. Sometimes people say we make them feel this way. We can't make anybody feel anyway. It's their choice on how they're going to feel. And we have society sometimes saying it's not okay to feel this way. But it is. It's okay. And everybody's different. There was a horrible accident. I do videos too, and I was asked to video a funeral of a 7-year-old kid who was killed in a car wreck, and his mom was in a coma in the hospital. So they had me film the funeral so that mom would be able to see it if or when she woke up. And the guy speaking was awesome. He talked about grief, and he talked about some of the fallacies in life, and one of them was, that grief, time heals all wounds. And he said, that's hogwash. It's not the time that heals the wound. It's what you do with that time. And it doesn't matter how long it takes to grieve the loss of a child or whatever. It doesn't matter unless we make it matter. And so going to the concept again, it's just how, it's not the time. It's not how much time, it's what you do with the time. Adler's theory is very relevant to parenting because he believed that our lifelong coping strategies depended on how connected we were to our parents. So what does he believe? Our lifelong coping strategies depend on how we're connected to parents. I don't know if he understood what's happening or going to be happening in the world in 100 years, but how connected are these step-parents feelings, families that are so not together, and this connectedness. And it's all a perception. I was working with a student, I was skiing with this student. We were on the lift, and he was telling me how his mom's been married 4 times, and he has siblings from the different marriages. And he was like, on Tuesday, Wednesday, this kid goes here, Wednesday, Thursday, this other kid goes here. And I said, boy, it must be so hard for you to know what it's like to have a normal family. And he looks at me and says, Mr. Webster, I don't want a normal family. I was like, what? And he says, I don't want to be married more than once. And I just thought, his perception of a normal family is that you're not connected. And so I'm like, what is his future? And I'm thinking, I want him to feel significant no matter what. And so yeah, that's society, right? That's all right. That's what we're doing. It motivates us. We win sometimes. So how those coping strategies are developed is dependent on how connected they are to their parents and how significant they felt in their family. Again, single family, single parent home, there can still be connectedness. There can still be significance. Based on Adler's theory, every person is an individual who was created in early childhood by his or her early life experiences, which are made up of his or her relationships within the family. Adler thought that a misbehaving child is just a discouraged child. Instead of trying to put pressure on the child to change their undesired behavior, you should help them feel valued, competent, and special. Is that powerful? As parents, what's our instinct? Deal with behavior. Right? We don't go to being connected. We don't go. The beauty of working in the school system is, how do you feel loved? What's going on at home? That's what I talk to the kids about. I don't tell them, oh, you just flipped the chair, you just tried to stab a kid with your pencil. I mean, I don't need to tell them they shouldn't do that. They know that. But what's that connected piece? By the way, we need to talk about a student. So, he's at my school, so if you didn't get that, but that was what yesterday was like. So,
Well, that was it.
yeah. So we help the students feel valued, or we help our clients, or we help our parents help their children feel valued. Because that's what we focus on. And all of a sudden things start to change because the connectedness and significance become part of it. But it's a choice between both. So, a few key points that I love to, this is who, for me, behavior is communication, like I was talking about before. All behavior. What are you communicating? Problem behavior is not a problem for that child. That makes sense? We see that dysfunction.
Coping strategy.
Yes. This is them dealing and getting what they need in the best way they know how. Even if it's dysfunctional, they're trying. And that's good. They're not withdrawing. They're not out there committing suicide. They're trying to communicate. I'd rather have an angry, explosive kid than a depressed, disconnecting one. And lots of you are nodding because you would too. We can work with that. Okay? Teach behavior, don't punish it. I had a teacher that told me that my first year as a principal, like things had changed in our school and I was trying to figure out why there weren't so many kids in trouble. And she said that was the philosophy that changed, was we teach behavior, we don't punish it. So instead of going to that punishment, it's like, oh, I'm sorry, you must be stabbing the kid because you don't know that you're not supposed to. But you help them feel significant and then they don't do that. So yeah, you teach it, but you can't teach unless you connect. So, I'm somewhat sarcastic, so please don't take offense to anything I say or you see. But behavior, belief behind behavior. This is what we see, this is the belief behind it, and the need for belonging and significance is all underneath. So, even though we're seeing this and that's what we want to deal with, sometimes we're not looking for that. And that's what's going to change. You move this, you're going to be moving that. According to Adler, all kids are born feeling inferior. You see why I was trying to use the word inferior when we were talking. It was like, this is what we're born feeling inferior. Are we inferior when we're born? Yep. We wouldn't get very far if we came out and there you go, see you later. And I said, hasta la pasta. But no, we're inferior, it's okay. And that, I think, is that whole struggle, is how do we help them realize they're not inferior when we're still responsible. That's Anyway, they spend their whole lives trying to compensate for the inferiority complex. And I thought last night, I was making this, like, okay, so what are we doing then? He says our whole lives. Where in my whole life am I trying to compensate for my inferiority? And I think that's when your comment there, Francis, what I was talking about, like my feeling of inferiority helps me write notes or, because I'm learning new words and, yeah.
Aren't we always inferior in some context depending upon who or where we're at with? So we're trying to help somebody with some of these issues, but we're also dealing with our own issues at some level in those as well.
Yeah, that holistic piece too, huh? Because it's not so clear cut. If it was, we would all be the same. Because that would be what works, and human nature is to do the easiest thing.
I think to some degree we are the same and that we're all inferior to some extent in some places.
Yeah, and you'll see that in the slide that's coming up here. They will do everything within their power to get over this feeling of inferiority, or we will, in order to meet two basic needs. So to get over our inferiority, we behave or we do things to help us feel connected and significant.
Would that include our constant habit of trying to compare ourselves to others?
Would it?
I would think so, if we want to be significant, but it's kind of like a trap, because there's always going to be somebody that's going to be better, and so then you're going to continue to feel that cycle of inferiority, and then at the same time you're thinking, well, I'm better than them, so then you get into the trap of comparing, and that's something that I constantly work on to help people not be akin to them. Not comparing yourself.
But that's because it becomes dysfunctional, which we'll talk about too, superiority.
Right. Yeah.
So trying to become superior versus inferior, and it's a gradient to us. I mean, it's a continuum in the 5 different aspects of our life.
But why does it I'm wondering, why does it have to be one's status in comparison with someone else, rather than, I am light years away from where I was 10 years ago, and I'm so glad that I don't have anything to do with all y'all. It's about me and where I was.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel significant, and it doesn't have anything to do with all you. It has to do with, I'm here, and I hope in 10 years, I didn't know anything 10 years ago.
Yeah.
That
Can I call you out just a little bit?
maybe.
Okay.
I don't want to feel inferior.
Why? It doesn't have anything to do with all of us all. See, and that's the example of what I'm talking about. Just that. You're right. It's like if we can compare ourselves to ourselves and see the growth, and isn't that what we want our clients to do?
Yeah.
And you're just trying to say, don't worry about all y'all. Worry about you. And the funny thing is we're basing ourselves off of all y'all when it's really fake anyway. And hyper fake now with social media.
Yeah.
Right? Go back to who are we? Well, I'm not going to tell everybody. I want to be inferior to the entire world, because if I post it on Facebook, the whole world's going to see it, even though you get 13 likes. So it's a perception that you're working with, and it goes to the core, which is...
They're always Photoshop.
Yeah, that's right. And the filters, now you don't have to Photoshop. The filters will take all your ugliness away. Make you look like a plastic Barbie. Because that's pretty.
Well,
But
most children, if you post pictures of your grandchildren all the time, then you always, everybody loves you.
yeah, you're right. So grandma's the golden key. We know that. Play the grandma card anytime you can. Yeah. Because all the other grandkids are going to be jealous that they don't have you for grandma. But no, I think we're being facetious. But you're exactly right.
They don't have to know me, but I sure have cute grandkids.
Exactly, and that's your fault. That your grandkids are cute. I mean, if they were ugly grandkids, they're not yours. It's all y'all's, right? I've never met an ugly grandkid. I'm just teasing. But yeah.
I was going to say, this resonates with me. I've been a counselor for 2 years, and where I work, I have counselors that have been there, 10, 15 years, and I really struggle with that competence piece. And how am I doing? And I compare myself to these other counselors, and I really struggle with that. Just sticking with, okay, my husband has to remind me, okay, let's look at where you are and where you come from. And
Yeah.
I think even as professionals, we really struggle with this.
if you really, really struggled with it, what would happen?
You need to get better.
You just,
What God?
and that's why it's like, it's productive struggle. We want that, don't we all? But the crazy paradigm is we are one person and we compare ourselves to everybody else. It's not that I'm comparing myself with one. It's like, oh, well, I should have known that because he knew that. Well, they all knew that, we think. And that's what, like, accepting who we are and just growing from it.
Well, in the misbehaving, because I find myself saying, I'm just gonna walk out, I'll show them.
Yeah.
What are they gonna do about it?
Revenge is your goal. Yeah. Right.
Dave, just a question. So yesterday, when we were looking at the wheel, the thing that stuck out to me was that compensation that equals overcompensation. Can you explain that a little bit? Like just
Right.
context?
I wasn't here yesterday.
Oh,
So,
What are we talking
but he's looking at the holistic and the,
yeah. So I guess the thing that came to mind to me was socially, right?
Right.
So I feel like we've attempted to compensate for a lot of the wrongdoings in the past socially.
Right.
And so they kind of came out of the Democratic Revolution and all of that changed the dynamic. But I feel like socially we're overcompensating for things now.
That's
Is
right.
that same?
Yes.
Concept?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're,
Inevitably will lead to an imbalance, right?
if someone feels this way and they compensate by,
perfect.
okay,
Yeah,
Makes sense.
and keep that in your brain because it's going to come out.
Been rolling around.
Right here, yeah. So according to Adler, all kids are born feeling inferior. We went through this, did we? Yeah.
Parents are
Sorry.
controlling you.
He can't come to terms with being smaller than the cat. I mean, isn't that it? Who's your cat?
that's it, yeah.
Who is your cat? Because we're the mice, and we choose who our cats are. And we choose a balance of some that are inferior to us and some that are superior to us so that we can be functioning normal
That mouse
adult.
is a chihuahua.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, it looked like a mouse, but you're right. It's probably a
It's
chihuahua.
an
Yeah.
overcompensation.
Yeah, that makes it different if it's a dog instead of a mouse. Yeah, it's a cat we eat. Anyway, never mind. So, 5 ways children start misbehaving. This is going off of what we did. So I'm going to kind of breeze through this a little bit. Seeking attention through demands of bad behavior. Oh, so going back to, this is if they don't get what they need in order to overcome their inferiority. So if children are not getting what they need, or if people are not getting what they need to overcome that inferiority, then this misbehaving comes out in the 5 different ways. Why? Because one of the basic foundations of Adlerian is that we're goal-oriented people. And even people that don't write down the goals have goals. Right? And I love to do that with kids at school sometimes, like, what's your goal in life? No, not school, but like, what do you want to become? Who do you want to become? And, oh, good dad. What's a good dad to you? And always, my experience in 12 years with kids and just life, it always goes back to love. They want to do it because they want to feel love and be able to give love. That's me. But some people could say connected in place of love. They want to feel connected. But to me, love is connection. So, 5 ways, the attention. They act as though they're not capable and need others to serve them. This is the part that I think Enid, you were discussing just a little bit there. So that they can get whatever they desire. And if I could make, and again, kids are wonderful at that. Not intentionally, they're just wanting things. And anyway, that's sometimes intentionally, obviously, but for the most part, I remember my son, one day, we bought my daughter a dress, and he's like, that's not fair. I didn't get new church clothes. I said, well, you want me to go buy a dress? He's like, no. I said, well, to be fair, I have to go buy you a dress, because I bought her a dress. Fair doesn't always mean equal. Power struggles through arguments, resistance and conflict. We talked a lot about that, but revenge. which we now know Rhonda is good at. Just kidding. Teasing. In an attempt to hurt the parents physically or verbally, sometimes it's through a proxy. And then the parents are like, well, I don't get it. Why are they hitting their sister? Well, because they're mad at you. And hitting you isn't going to hurt as bad as me hitting my sister, because you're going to really think our whole family's a mess if I can get that to accomplish. If I take her down with me, we're all going down. Right? That's that revenge, despair, proof. This is on what Maybell has, is the proof of inadequacy or inferiority that can lead to apathy, depression, and in extreme cases, self-harm and attempted suicide. And this is the part that always freaks me out. How do we get them not to go into despair? So, those are the misbehaving. Why is misbehaving in quotes? Do they see that as misbehaving? Problem behavior is not a problem for that child. We say it's misbehaving because you're getting what you want. Sometimes suicide, they just want out. That is it. And they think that's the way out. So, how do we help? As counselors, as therapists, we help examine their patterns of seeking significance and connection. That's why we talk about 5 love languages. How do you feel connected? Well, first, if you can understand and put it in a framework that people can get. I love communication. I'm passionate about it. Why? Because it's taking what I have in my head and heart and trying to connect it with what you have in your head and your heart. That's when communication happens. It's not a one-way street. But we speak in symbols. And everything is symbolic. If I say manzana, how many of you know what I'm talking about? Leticia. Okay, a few. Why? It's apple in Spanish. But when I said manzana, what happened? What came in your head? An apple. What color was your apple? What color was yours? Mine was green. It's symbolic. At some point I was taught manzana, those sounds all put together symbolize something. And I've seen an apple. And green was my identification, so the symbolic piece of that. So we could be talking about apples all day long, and you're thinking red, and I'm thinking green. Because it's symbols. What's the letter A? Symbols. And then you put a bunch of symbols together, and it becomes a word, but it's only a word because we've been taught that these symbols and words put together represent something. And communication, isn't that the core of therapy? And that's why it's so fun to be a therapist. It's diverse. You think you're right on. You think they're getting it. And they're thinking red. And I'm thinking green. That's the dynamic part. But we see their pattern. And then we evaluate that with them. That's why we're going to do life work. We're going to do life sketches. We're going to do family diagram, the buttons. That's all this, isn't it? And then we help them change these patterns. So you guys talked quite a bit about 5 fields of striving. This, again, physical, intellectual, psychological, social, and economic. And we're all in this continuum. And sometimes when you're evaluating these patterns, this is what you're looking at. How are you working from your physical inferiority to significance? Not superiority, but significance. And then intellectually, if you feel inferior, what are you doing to work to that intellectual significance? Make sense? So, you can Google this, but I'll just holistic approach, this is where you're going. That behavior, it can't be separated from the individual life and circumstances. We're holistic beings, and our thoughts, feelings, emotions, and behaviors are a reflection of that same person.
I noticed that Adler doesn't, on his holistic approach, address spirituality, and I don't know if that's something that's included in some other area or.
Not really, no.
We talked about it, I know, when we were doing it.
On your notes, I think maybe.
Did I write it somewhere? On my chicken scratch?
Inferiority feelings.
Say
At the
that
bottom, inferiority.
right here. Natural and what does that say? To human. Oh, inherent. Natural and inherent to human condition. Child born into inferior position. So, yeah.
If you want to remove Adler and spirituality, you'll find quite a bit of connection there.
Lots.
Connection.
Yeah. You were working, who was I talking to that was working on a meeting and an advanced workshop with that. That was you, Blair?
Yeah.
So stay tuned. But yeah, the answer to the question, why do people do what they do, or why do kids behave the way they behave, is not absolute. If it was, it would be a book and we would all be the same. But there's no trend, except for there's individual truth for each. And each child needs to be examined in the context of their life. That's why you got to get to know each other, that connect. And you can't examine them when they come in if they're not going to talk. They're not going to let you connect somehow. So we bring tools, CBT, we bring play therapy to connect somehow so they'll let us in, and then the connections occur. And then we're examining patterns of behavior, and then we're helping them see their inferiorities, accept them, and then move. That's Adler. So that's what you're doing when you're working with a client. You might use different tools and all this, but ultimately, is that not what we do as Adlerians? It's deeper than this, not superficial, like the other. Humans generally move forward towards growth and involvement. We all strive towards significance, superiority, and success. So, I think going to that connection, we go to where there's connection games. That's one of the issues. The games, all those, that whole concept of being connected. So we're goal-oriented. We call it a mental disorder when the person overcompensates their inferiority by searching for over-significance or superiority over others. Does that make sense? This is just Adlerian. But if you've got a good balance, because you are superior to some people in some things, but not everything. You're inferior to some people in some things, but not everything. And it's okay, because then we realize we're human. And we accept that, and we're good at that. And then now we're balanced. Self-determination. This was the thing I was going to. Individuality. Always remember that you are unique, just like everybody else. Right? Yeah.
On TV the other day, they had a thing about a teacher that had taught music like for 15 years, 50 years, and she would tell her students, no one will take your place, but someone will stand where you have stood.
Great. Wonderful. Yeah. I have somebody that's left my building. She's been in my building for a long time, and she's quit to go get some health insurance and a full-time job somewhere. And the person that's taking her job was just crying yesterday. She's like, I can never. And I was like, no one can replace them. They can take the job, but they won't replace them. And that's because of our uniqueness and our abilities, and that's the beauty of it. And I don't look for people to replace people. I look for people to replace the position. Come back in, bring what you have, and let's synergize. Now,
so I work at the state hospital with severe persistent mental illness. So Adler, did he feel that all mental illness was just kind of this need for striving? Did he recognize, did he accept the medical model on some?
yeah, when I talked to him, that's what he said.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. I would say yes. I think if he were here, this is the core of it. And it becomes a mental illness when we're dysfunctional. There's a lot of people that have anxiety, but it's not a dysfunction. My daughter came to me just last December and said, I need to go get medication. I've got anxiety. Everybody's telling me I'm anxious and this and I said, well, Bria, that's her name, what are you doing? And we went through like 20 things she had committed to do that week. And I was like, yeah, you're gonna be anxious. It's not about medicating now, it's about getting rid of that stuff that you're putting yourself in. That balance. But if they don't check themselves, then it becomes a dysfunction.
I guess, I mean, that's not quite what I'm asking.
Oh.
Like, so I've got a patient, I'm in a hospital with all patients. One of my patients, he really believed that the government had inserted a tracking device into his genitalia. So he took a knife and went after that tracking chip. So in my view, I think of that as just a brain dysfunction. We know schizophrenia typically develops as the brain's tuning itself up between 18 and 25. So I don't see that as like necessarily a goal-directed behavior. I think of that as just a really severe brain disorder that's medically based is how I would think of it.
Yeah. What if you were to go clear back to why does the government want to know so much about you? I don't know, I'm just wondering. Like, what if, it's like, okay, so there's, I don't know. I'm just curious. What the thought process that what he's inferior, nothing can come out. I don't know. These are always questions, but I'm not disagreeing. It seems like there'd have to be something pretty severe for that.
The bigger question might be, what part of psychopharmacology play in Adler theory?
Yeah, that's a whole other workshop.
Okay.
I'm just going to say, my understanding from Adler and perspective, but I could be wrong, is that, so what's the purpose?
Mm-hmm.
So like, you're depressed. I know he didn't believe, I don't know. I don't know if anybody read M. Scott Peck's Less Proud People Alive, Worldly Born. But he said that people's lives, mental illness is almost always a choice. He says, and he a whole series of choices. He says, with the, and I think that fits here, with the exception of some organic stuff like schizophrenia, bipolar, and some major depressive disorder, set off by trauma. But
because again, if you played this situation through, it's like, well, what if? Sounds like he got it out, so he should be pretty functional now. Let's see in the hospital. That's not. I'm just like the next choice. Where do we move forward from here?
There's mental dysfunction.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So it's evident right here. I've had permanent brain damage. I've had a stroke. I've had to work through those. I don't feel inferior because of that. I'm hilarious. But there's elements of that when I have gone to the point where I can no longer function, I sleep. Okay, that's not my choice. I hate to sleep. So in that respect, there's always an anomaly to the thing, but as far as the general population is considered, those that are without, like Alzheimer's people, there's disconnections between the synapses in their cognitive
There's
processing.
absolutely biological.
And so those biological disconnects and things are without regard.
I guess that's
something that they can't be.
Absolutely. I mean, we can't negate that, and I don't want you to think that that's what we're doing.
It can't be.
Can I take this for just a second?
Those things are without precedence. But in society, those people are identified. Okay, there's a psychiatrist that's identified this person has these disconnects. That's why he's in the facility.
This came up, your exact same question came up to me years ago and I posed this to Steve Maybell, and he said, he talked about a client that he worked with paranoid schizophrenia, a woman who believed that the professional baseball team, the Padres, were stalking her and always watching her. when she could see them following her around when she was at the grocery store. And it's schizophrenia. And Steve said, how insignificant do you have to feel to need to overcompensate in believing that a professional baseball team wants to follow you around town? And so when we have extreme physiological, definitely when we talk about bipolar disorder and schizophrenia, there is a genetic component and responds well to medication, but the Adlerian part of those extreme disorders magnify our need to compensate to find superiority in our life. Does that make sense? And so how inadequate does this man really feel in tandem with his predisposition for schizophrenia to feel the need that NSA is spying through, monitoring him through his testicles? That's an extreme. So it's still the same. In Minnesota, I worked with a schizophrenic from time to time that when he was home, no matter how much medication, treatment, everything, his symptomology of schizophrenia would become extreme. Minnesota had funding in a program where he could go into a living situation where he was his own person, he had his own space. Employment was offered there in the facility. He could choose to go to work on days if he didn't feel up to it, he didn't have to. And it was a program just for the severely mentally ill. When he was in that residential facility, his symptomology would be greatly reduced, and he didn't require as much PRN medication to deal with things. And so what can we pick up from that? Genetically, his genetic predisposition doesn't change from when he's in his home environment or when he is in this very controlled and manipulated or encouraging environment. The symptomology goes down because he doesn't feel as inadequate. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I want to say that back to you because I think, so what you're saying is an Adlerian worldview, whatever, would recognize that there's a genetic, biological illness.
Absolutely. Adler was a physician initially.
Okay, and then he would just say that these other issues, inferiority, all these other things would magnify or play a role in how that's manifest.
In a holistic perspective.
Yes.
Exactly.
And I see that in the hospital too, that feeling, you have an interaction with a nurse where you're not validated, and suddenly the voices are really loud and really intense.
That's right.
And then we get them calmed down, and then the voices kind of come down a little bit. So I see that.
There you go.
So that makes sense.
And I need to apologize because I heard Brad use the word significant or superiority, inferiority to superiority, and I'm thinking maybe I was doing that as well, where it's not necessarily superiority, it's significance that we're striving for. Make sense? Inferiority to significance is what we're striving for. It becomes a mental illness when it changes to superiority. Is that right?
Right.
Okay, so let's listen to Allison real quick on this social equality piece.
Instead of mental illness, could you say mental dysfunction?
The thing is, you can't try to impose a hierarchical triangular arrangement on a child who now has a sense that they're being born into this social democracy. So here's where where a lot of people will take disagreement with what I'm saying. It's where it's really, it's just a point of clarification. I don't think we're philosophically not aligned. And that is that most people, when they hear the idea of social equality with children, mostly what comes to mind is there is no way that we're the same as kids. There's no way an adult is like a child. How can we be social equals? So I really want to make sure we understand what I'm talking about when I say social equality, because there's many ways that adults, parents are better than kids. And let's just appreciate that right now. What do I do better than my kids? What are adults better at? Superior at? Making money. We have income, and if you have income, for sure you're going to have more abilities, more freedoms, the freedoms that money allows you to have. What else do adults have that kids don't have? Yes, and you need a lot of life experience to figure out that if you jump in that puddle and your socks get wet, you're going to have little toes that look like raisins all day at school, right? Because we've jumped in our puddles. Yeah. What else? Say again?
Prefrontal cortex.
Yeah, the prefrontal cortex. I'll tell you something. The way the brain develops is from inside to out and back to front, and that prefrontal cortex is our logical center, our planning, execution. It's a slower part of the brain. There's a lot of reasoning, but the brain is growing up until the age of 25. And so that brain takes a long time to get up to speed with all of its wiring. And as a matter of fact, how many people here were in that teenage group? Raising teenagers, raising teens and tweens? Yeah. So you need to know that in the tween and teen years, the brain undergoes a major rewiring. It is basically under construction. And you will definitely see that in some of the decision making that happens with adolescents, because that prefrontal cortex is really just not all as available. You got a lot of gas and no brakes, and leads to some interesting challenges. Yeah. So when I talk about the idea of having foresight and reasoning and life experience and money, all of those things we are better at than kids. We absolutely are. But the idea of social equality is the idea that just because you are smaller and have less capabilities and maybe haven't learned to tie your shoes yet, does that mean that you should be treated with less respect and dignity than somebody else?
Okay.
Right? And you know, if you think about it, think about the other end of the spectrum. Think about what it is when we have aging people. If you've got somebody in an old folks home who is losing their capacities, right? So now the prefrontal cortex is like starting to have some cognitive slips, right? They're maybe not managing their money very well. As a parent who has to look after a senior person, if they can't manage those functions, it's your responsibility to step in and say, you know, hey, listen, Mommy, I've been noticing your bank account, and I think you're paying things twice, and the telemarketers are taking you for a ride here, because they'll go after seniors. And so you have to step in and take that responsibility back. But you only take that responsibility back once they can't manage it. We wouldn't step in prematurely if they can still manage their money. It's more respectful that they look after themselves. Isn't that true? Yeah. And so if you go to visit a senior citizen and they are trying to have their soup, you know, and they've got their kind of Perkins in hand and they're trying to get their tomato soup up to their lip, you know, you don't walk in there and say, you know what, that is taking far too long and we're making a mess. Just let me see, right? We would never do this to a senior citizen, would we? And yet how many times would we do that to a kid in a high chair? I don't have time to clean up your mess, let me just spin you out, let me feed you, that's faster, that's cleaner, let's get that, right? It's very disrespectful. Very disrespectful. You would not say to a senior who's trying to make their way over to the commode, come on, just put on a pair of Depends and let's get this looked after. It's easier for me, it's easier for everybody. Very disrespectful. And yet, to kids, no, we're getting in the car, I don't have time to stop and pull off the highway, just put on your pull-up, let's just, you know, right? Very disrespectful. We don't see it as disrespect when we're talking about with little kids, right? So when I'm talking about equality then is this idea that every person has the right to have a say about things that matter and impact them to their ability. So I say that again. Every person has the right to have a say about things that impact them to their ability. And so obviously a 3-year-old is going to be different than a 18-year-old, is going to be different than a child with autism, is going to be different than grandma, but everybody has a say. Now the other interesting thing about living in a democracy is that in a democracy everybody has a say, but you don't always get your way. And isn't that true? Isn't that true in life, right? And in the democracies that we live in, we have a process and a protocol to have our way met, but it doesn't mean that you're always going to get it. But having that process, having that voice, that's the part that's so empowering.
Does that make sense? Kind of reiterates what we're talking about. These video clips, they're just right on Adler.org. Okay? Adler on ISIP's website.
Oh.
Just under resources. You can also purchase the entire conference there if you want. The DVDs for 5 years.
Each of you have a card at your table that has the website on it.
Yep. This isn't promotional, this is does that make sense? But I want you to know these resources are there for you, because if you're like me, it's like, that was awesome, but I can't remember. So, we're all individuals searching for uniqueness in whatever group we're in. And I love what she says, that everybody gets their say according to their ability, but that does not mean that everybody gets their way. And I think that's where we start to get into the issue. The way we define ourselves within the family will determine the way they respond. I think there's like 3 more slides. So I know the head can only take as much as the butt can handle. We're going to have a break in just a little bit. But this community of evolution, our aim is to fit, but also our aim is to improve our society. Right? Doesn't that make sense? We want to fit, but we want to improve it. And sometimes we refuse to conform and follow the herd because we see value in innovation and evolution. Some kids' rebellious behavior is driven by this understanding. Think of that. Maybe they're being a twerp because they're trying to make it better. These kids, sometimes they're called leaders in childhood, and they grow up to be labeled as entrepreneurs as adults. So, when we're fully connected and secure in our self-determination and significance, we're able to contribute to others' well-being. Sometimes I have an issue with that statement, being fully connected and secure. Well, when does that ever happen? It's like, I would say, and I heard somebody say this once, awesome, the only perfect marriage is the one striving to be, right? And I've changed it, the only perfect teacher is the one striving to be. The only perfect person is the one that's striving to be. Just keep striving. And so sometimes it's like, I'm fully connected. Yes, I know I'm not, but it's good enough for me, so I would say I'm fully connected. Make sense? So, our self-determinations, we're able to contribute to others' well-being. It's very difficult to contribute to others when we don't feel significant ourselves. We gain our superiority by giving to others rather than putting them down. And when we reach the state of being, we shift from being self-centered, which is inferior, to helping and supportive, which they're using the word superior, but I would still say significant. Yeah.
I think it's a stepping kind of a thing, and whenever you take a step, you have something in your cup, and you can contribute what's in your cup, no matter if you're down here or if you're lucky enough to be up there.
Yeah, one marble is still a marble. Regardless of which jar you're in, it's still a marble. And sometimes those 3-year-olds, they have something to contribute. And if we just think they don't, say that what?
I said especially 3-year-olds have something to
Yeah. I was telling my teachers yesterday, it's fun to work in elementary school because I can, if I want to feel good about myself, I go to the 3rd and 4th grade because they're kind. I go to 1st grade, they're going to tell me everything wrong with me. Not to be mean, they're observant, right? And you go to 5th and 6th grade and you just want to rip your hair out. Developmental. So let's listen to this.
Here's the thing that Adlerians believe about mental health. Mental health is finding your sense of home in the world. Mental health is feeling like you count, like you're capable, like you are contributing to people. In a very real sense, we use the Adler's German word Gemeinschaftsgefühl just to impress people. But really, what Gemein means is that you have an interest in the interests of others. Schafts means you're in the action of constructing it. And fuel means that you have that social feeling that goes with it. So if you mush them all together, Gemeinschaftsgefühl is about belonging to humanity, about being in the flow of life. What's the opposite of it? Self-absorption, isolation, withdrawal. Those are all the characteristics also of psychopathology. You are in retreat from life. So, in order to help people, we have to bring that sense of social interest to others. That has to be, and notice it doesn't specifically say that this is how you do it. It just says you have to be interested in the interests of someone else. So, in therapy, we call that presence. We call that bringing my entire sense of self into contact with this other person. And as I said earlier, I might not start at a level of caring about them, but I can start with interest, and I can start with fascination, and I can start with, Steve knows how to do it. I can go into the engagement as if we are going to be lifelong friends. And that's the great paradox, isn't it, of therapy? We meet people in the middle of life and we say goodbye to them in the middle of life, and we want to act in such a way that we could have been their best friend for all of life. And if we can do that, it turns out that the single most important thing that a therapist controls that contributes to the success of therapy is the relationship that you form with someone else. Technique counts for 8% of success. Relationship, 37%.
Okay. Kind of cool, huh? When Jim said that at the conference, I was like, Gemeinschaft, that word.
Gemeinschaft.
Yes. And I was like, I can never spell it, I tried it. It's like, that's the best definition of what that is to me. Make sense? So again, these video clips, they're right on the website. If you want to know where they are, just ask. But there's a lot more there too. So spend some time. That's our mission as ISIC. That's what we want to do. And if you can have contribute, it's great for you. So here's the review if you want to look at that slide. Otherwise, let's take 10. Is 10 long enough?
Yep.
Is that good?
That's fine.
So thanks everybody. You're awesome.